Welcome everyone. Today I'm going to be carving a little turtle. I like to call these bad boys little greenbacks. When you're at a show, make you some good money. Do one of these in a quick carve, about an hour. Keeps people entertained. They're pretty adorable. And I'll show you how I do this. What tools do you use? I'm not really biased too much. As long as it works well, I'm happy with that. I do tend to try and buy the best tool I can afford and only buy it when I need it, so it'll last a long time. That's my theory. So what I have here, we got 2 file Swiss carving gouges, a number 325. 3 is how curved it is and 25 is how wide it is. One, I got a V gouge. It's a number 12. 12 signifies that it's a V. It's a 6mm wide. There, Milwaukee die grinder M18, pretty sweet tool. I took a rotary rasp, and you take a ball hone, concave the end, that's your eye tool. It's a Milwaukee Surge hydraulic impact. Nice and quiet, a lot less annoying. For my block and saw, making your big cuts. Husqvarna 555. Got a Canon Super Mini 16-inch. 50 gauge chain on 3/8 low pro. It's a little thinner kerf, cuts a little faster. Just wanted to try it out. Seems pretty good so far. Got the first saw I bought, MS 180. Oregon Sculptor 14-inch dime tip and quarter pitch 50 gauge chain. And then last but not least, I got Steel MSA 200. Got the weird little bar, 8-inch dime tip, Canon 50 gauge chain, quarter pitch. If you want to know what all the chain sizes are and have that explained, I guess leave a comment and I can make a video about that. We got this here chunk of white pine. This will be what we're using. I'll get set up. Hope you enjoy. All right, so these first cuts, you're gonna see I cut through. I'm establishing the back of the head and then I'll cut in. So that takes the biggest part of the block away. All right, so I got the head. And you gotta imagine the shell in here, and then you're gonna have 4 legs. I'll usually run a liner on the bottom, so I know where the base is and where I, want to cut down to. And I also cut in a little groove, kind of starting that shell, tucking in behind the head. So I'll start shaping in the shell, and then when I get to the feet, I'll stop and kind of explain what I do there. Got the shell roughed in. I cut a perimeter around it just as a visual guide to where I want that edge of the shell to be. And I also took the bar and I'll touch it up with this one. But as I'm going around, you can see the tip of the bar is scooped and curved. And turtle shells will kind of flare off a little and just adds a little bit more character. So I'll take and just kind of whittle a bit around. Whittle the bar around and whittle the wood away. Just a little bit of whittling. And that'll give you that flare on that shell. From now, I switch over to my quarter tip bar, or a dime tip actually. And I'll be doing some plunge cutting. And be careful doing this. With the smaller radius of a carving bar, it kicks back a lot less. But this is where it could kick back and a lot more potential to hurt yourself. But I'll cut straight down on each side of the leg. And I'll do that all the way around. Then I'll cut in. And then I'll plunge cut, and then I'm able to cut those blocks out and create those cavities where the legs are. And that's a pretty quick way to do it, and you don't have to spend a whole lot of time just rubbing with the tip of the bar to slowly scoop that wood away. So you can see how I kind of started addressing the back too. So I do a cut, establish the tail, and then I take the bar, can cut up using the top of the bar. Be careful, that's where kickback happens. Hopefully that doesn't become a catchphrase. A guy named Buzzsaw Bob once said, can tell everything you need to know about a carver by the quality of his base. I think it sounds pretty solid, so we'll go with that. This is cupped out and scooped real nice. And I also address the head. Looking at everything in orthographics, and by that I mean like side, front, top views. As my life drawing teacher told me, there's pretty much no straight lines in nature. So S curves, C curves, they're your friends. And it just makes things look a lot more organic and a lot more lively. You know, bubbly turtle going on. I also scoop out the arch of the nose, and then I round the front, and it kind of has that, you know, hatchet look. You know, get that established. I'm getting a good form. If you don't have a good form and you're in a quick carve, you're gonna get 10 minutes in, like I've done it myself, get 10 minutes in, you got this hacked up piece of crap that you're trying to save the rest of the hour. And if you just take your time, breathe, make steady, intentional cuts, you're gonna be a lot better off. So yeah, let's get these rounded up. Getting in the zone, feeling it. It's getting rounded over pretty nice. Sorry about the light. And so you can see, established the legs, pretty good shape. Now if this were a bigger carving and I had more than like an hour to do it, yeah, I'm pretty meticulous. I'd really get in and clean things up really crazy well, but for the sake of this video, this is how you do it in a quick carve. How I would do it in a quick carve. Correction. Getting the eyes is important. We're gonna spend a little time on that because everyone looks at your eyes first for the most part. And I suppose some guys might look other places first, but we won't get into that. Making eye contact, it's important and kind of part of human nature. So if you're gonna spend any amount of time and be really picky, I think eyes are important because that's where people are gonna look first. And if you can sell an expression, the rest can suffer a little bit. And people do not seem to care as much. Got that, and then from there, move the texturing the legs. I usually add a few toenails. Went to grab a fresh one. And what do you know? Walking back. I knew I saw it fall off. Got that sorted out. This much I do know. Turtles have 5 plates on the back, or you draw, it might be 6 down the center. So I draw 5 lines. It's good to have stuff like that memorized and ingrain it into your mind, then you don't have to think about it when you're in the heat of a quick carve. And then they're kind of hexagon shaped like this with a little bit of flair. Now you may say it's a chainsaw carving. Doesn't matter if they have a little bit of flair. I've had a lot of people come up to me and say they're watching me and they fell in love with it when I started adding the details. So I'd argue that it is important. It's that extra step that people notice. I guess that's the difference between maybe having a real good weekend and a not so good weekend. And then from there, the points just carry down to the edge. Now I don't mark this out competition, but for your sake, you can kind of see how it's laid out. So we got the shell cut in. Had to use the gas saw because someone may have forgotten to charge the batteries. So when adding the eyes, I make sure that eyebrow is nice and tall. Comes back to kind of a point. You kind of imagine the center of it running through here. Sharpie doesn't like bar oil all that much. And then as I come down, I kind of swoop it in. And then as I start, that bottom edge of the eyebrow, I keep kind of puckered up. Kind of like high cheeks are going to push the bottom of your eyebrow up. And it's going to add a cuteness to it. And then you kind of want a happy, surprised little turtle. So you're gonna put the pupil at the bottom, show more of the white of the eye. There's somewhere in there. And then, so here you're gonna have a little bit of get that turtle lip. And then right about mid-eye is where I carry that back to and just flare it up. And then with the nose of the bar, I'll cut that little puckered up muscle around the edge. And then that's the bottom of the mouth. Just kind of got his mouth open. The sun's right in my eyes, but it'd be like looking up at you, all excited to see you, just ready to be put on someone's doorstep. Then you can carry that over. I knew a girl once. She said her older sister made fun of her turtle lip. I thought it was cute, so older sister ain't got nothing on her. Flicking that up right at the corner of the mouth is gonna give a nice smile. And then when you cut around that, it's just really gonna emphasize that. So you've roughed this in. This is where your V gouge comes in. Now we could get into the way the grain runs more later. But you take your V gouge and you cut the edges in, nice and clean. One thing about me is dull tools drive me nuts. So if I let you use my tools, it means I really trust you. I trust that you're not gonna run it into a nail or something. So I'm cutting it in, using the edge of the file, not the file, well, it is a file Swiss. Edge of the carving gouge. You can cut flats, and so make a couple passes. It's technically faceted, but At that scale, no one can really tell unless they look super close. And a lot of the time, you're just trying to get the illusion. So good mark making goes a long way. So with those flats in these corners, you can come back. Could use a carving knife as well, but making use of fewer tools is always nice. Just means it's that much less you have to carry along. Anywhere you go, or that much less you have to purchase. Alright, so I got that cleaned up. I can get this in there. Make that little dimple a little nicer as well. Cut that groove in. Kind of scoop it out there. Clean that up. Kind of clean the whole nose up with this if you want. But for a quick car, that might be getting a little picky. Then cut that corner of the mouth in real nice. Nice crisp clean line. Really defined. So you can also use the back side or backwards from what you would typically think of how you would use a chisel. And that way you can get a rounding of the lip. And come over this side, repeat. So you can see I cut a second line in there. I do that to give the turtle a little bit of a little tongue sticking out. I think it makes it look cuter. If you disagree, leave a comment. And I may potentially reconsider my choices, but only if you have good reasoning. It's funny because in a quick carve, I'm usually pretty amped up, so there's a bit of adrenaline. And I'm sitting here trying to look calm and collected as I'm adding the, final details to this. People are usually watching. I used to try and carve really fast. And then, like I mentioned earlier, you end up making more mistakes you're just trying to fix the whole time. And it probably tends to make people a little nervous when someone with a chainsaw is frantically cutting at a piece of wood in unconventional manners. So, for professionalism, I now choose to go slow and steady. And ironically enough, I'm carving a tortoise. So slow and steady wins the race. And so you'll notice right there, it chipped out. And that's because I was cutting against the grain. If you imagine a deck of cards and you slide it out, and they're all kept in place, you could run your finger along one way and it'll go down the steps of the cards. But if you go the other way, your finger's gonna grab a lot more. And so that concept carries over to wood grain. So thinking about that as you're cutting will help you avoid chip out like this in certain situations. Sorry if I'm blocking you, kind of a weird one to get cut. For maximum safety, you always want to cut towards yourself. That's a joke, don't do that. But after you've done it enough, you kind of, if you're not pulling with your whole arm, you're not going to stab yourself if it does slip. So if you're just using your fingers, it's probably a tad safer, bit safer. But I wouldn't recommend it. Always best to be pushing away from you. You'd think, well, Michael, that's obvious. Yet if any of you are nurses, I'm sure you've had someone come in who stabbed themselves in an accident. Everyone's a master until they're not. So I probably didn't cover this earlier, but with these smaller carvings, it's nice to just screw them up from the bottom. Run a screw through a platform that you make yourself, or even just toenail it into a log to hold it still. It'll help a lot in stability. And then you can push on it and carve on it without worrying about it tipping over a whole lot. So you can kind of scoop that out, cup it. I don't know if anyone tries this. They say, I get asked, how long did it take you to get this place? Or how did you get as good? Or to the skill level you are? It's a lot of trial and error. You'll get asked, what happens if you screw up? And well, you screw up about 50 times every carving. It's just how well you can correct those mistakes. Don't get frustrated. Worst case scenario, firewood. Here, then I grab my eye tool. You do it on each side like that. Burns the wood, burnishes it in there. You can see I kept that more towards the center. Kind of looking up at you. He's got his little smirk on his face. It's a lovable little turtle face. Yeah, I think we can speed this up a bit. So you burned your carving. Now it's nice and dry, a little bit more sandable. Use the big torch, it's quick. Quick carve, everyone will be lighting those up about 45 minutes in and it sounds like jets taking off. I got some Rust-Oleum here. Can be cheap paint, doesn't really matter. Sometimes the cheap stuff is nicer and kind of tint it in a little bit, but go around, hit under those legs, hit the edge of the shell, maybe mist it on a little bit from afar, hit that front cavity. You might be thinking, holy crap, I just ruined my car. Can't see anything. That's all right. We'll fix it. I bought this all-purpose spray enamel from a hardware store. Works pretty nice. Not exactly the healthiest option, but it does dry paint quickly. Good to wear a respirator for obvious reasons. Grind away all the black on the shell that you don't want.